So a Sunday afternoon clash here at St James's Park for Newcastle United against Arsenal, and Newcastle in need of 3 Premier League points today. They really do need to start stringing some results together. Newcastle not doing too badly, has to be said. Only lost 1 game in the Premier League, but that inconsistency is just starting to show. If you look at the league table, only 6 games in, but you know, Newcastle in the bottom half at the minute. It's not where they want to be. It's not where anybody wants to be at the minute. So it's about getting the balance right with all the competitions, but also keeping an eye on the bread and butter stuff, which is the Premier League table. Arsenal come here today on the back of a pretty poor record up here at St James's Park. Newcastle just seem to have that ability to ruffle the feathers of Mikel Arteta, and we'll certainly be looking to do that again today. The midfield battle is going to be key today, with Newcastle looking to play through Arsenal's tough midfield 3 and try and get that result, which we all know Newcastle are more than capable of. It's just a case of putting it all together and finding that complete performance. So Newcastle v Arsenal here today, in a way trying to spark a new week with a victory. They've got the trip to Brussels coming up in the Champions League midweek, and then obviously Nottingham Forest back here in 7 days time. So a tough schedule ahead, but one Newcastle more than capable of picking up some results. So it ended in a tough defeat for Newcastle United here today, beaten in the 96th minute, believe it or not, against Arsenal, on a day which at one stage had promised quite a lot. A tale of 3 set pieces really. In some ways Newcastle profiting from a great move, Sandro Tonali to Anthony Gordon, back to Tonali, and Woltemade headed in his second Newcastle United goal and put them 1-0 up. Newcastle had been under the cosh up until then, has to be said. It was probably against the run of play, that particular goal, but I think for me, really, today Newcastle gave themselves a platform to go on and take 3 massive points here against Arsenal, and it was only in the latter stages where this game slipped away from them. They'd held on to everything. Malik Chow looked brilliant, Nick Pope had pulled off save after save, but they just couldn't hold on in the end. But when it got to 86 minutes and Newcastle were at 1-1, that really should have been the big warning sign to shut shop, take a point, dust yourself down and go home. But Newcastle continued to push and were hit by pretty much a sucker punch in the end. Arsenal scoring again from a corner, swung in by Odegaard, and Gabriel profiting from Nick Pope not being able to get 2 hands on the ball. Dan Burn sort of collapsing, and Gabriel scoring the winning goal. It was a real blow for Newcastle, and they'll look back on this game and they'll look back on the video of those 2 set pieces and know they'll be kicking themselves, because they could have done much better. So that was the disappointing way that this game ended, and Newcastle fans left the stadium probably a bit deflated. It's the second time it's happened this season, and it's not through the fact that Newcastle aren't a good side. It's just game management in the big games, and that's twice now against Liverpool, and now against Arsenal, that Newcastle have been unable to hold on and just accept that sometimes a point is a good result. But unfortunately today, Newcastle faded when it mattered most, and Arsenal walk away with the points. I spoke to Eddie Howe after the game, and I asked him what his sort of reaction would be in a couple of days as Newcastle prepare for a Champions League trip to Brussels. I think the reality for him, he can't really read the Ajax, because as he said in his press conference, this team, it's not about the lack of commitment, it's not about effort. They are trying, they're just not managing games the way they should be, and I think that's something that everybody has to work on behind the scenes. Today they were unable to do it, but he's certainly not going to lay into the players. I mean, the game against Nottingham Forest next week now becomes pretty much a must-win for Newcastle after only one win on the board. They're sitting in the bottom half of the table. Champions League action will take care of itself. But Eddie also saying that a change of competition might be good for Newcastle in the next few days, and there's no better way to get over a defeat than to get a result in Europe and get points on the board that way. And certainly there'll probably be a few changes in there today. We await information about Tino Livermento's injury. He got stretchered off. That was a big blow for Newcastle. But yeah, that would be a hammer blow if he's out for a long period of time, because he is such an important player for Newcastle. And I think realistically now we are going into a crunch run of fixtures in the season, and everybody is going to be needed. There were a few eyebrows raised today before the game when Lewis Hall wasn't involved, but Eddie Howe had already hinted that he's probably going to have to rest some players for this match. And Lewis Hall, having him back fresh, for the midweek game will be absolutely crucial for Newcastle. And squad rotation is going to be important. But you look at today, maybe the substitutions, that's where things start to go a little bit wrong. When Woltemade went off, they lacked a focal point. I've seen some mixed sort of reviews about Woltemade today, but for me, when he went off, Newcastle just didn't have that target to hit. And in the second half, while they did have a few breakaways, there was no real massive threat for me when the £69 million man went off, and that's a problem for them. In the final third, it's a huge issue. So Newcastle must now be realistic where they are as a team and accept that perhaps they're not going to be battering teams 3 and 4-0 every week, and when they've got a slender goal lead, then that's what they need to cling on to, and at the moment they just don't seem to have that formula to do it. So disappointing, but again against the top side in Arsenal. But Newcastle, pretty much will feel deflated now, and it's on to the next couple of games, and then an international break where Eddie Howe will be hoping to dust a few bodies down, and Newcastle head into that long hard winter. But today, disappointing, but certainly not the end of the world, and one where Newcastle have to reassess, reevaluate, and look forward to those 2 games this week. But today, the final word on this one, disappointing, but were Newcastle the architects of their own downfall? I'll let you answer that in the comment box below.